A limestone tablet sits in the Cairo Museum, catalogued as JE 2091. 76 centimeters tall, 38 centimeters wide, carved with 4 registers of gods and a frame of hieroglyphs. Most visitors walk past it on the way to the Tutankhamun gallery. It's called the Inventory Stela, and it was pulled from the ruins of a small Isis temple east of the Great Pyramid by Auguste Mariette in 1858. Its text describes the pyramid as already standing before Khufu, names features inside the monument, and references sealed doorways that mainstream Egyptology spent 150 years calling fabrication. Then, in 1993, a German engineer sent a small robot up a shaft inside the pyramid and found exactly what the tablet hinted at: a limestone door, sealed. And embedded in its face, 2 copper fittings the early reports called handles, or keys. Start with the object itself, the inventory. Stela is limestone, originally polished, now weathered along its lower edge where the carving turns crude. The face is divided into 4 horizontal registers populated by reliefs of 22 divine statues, each labeled with its name, the material it was made of, and its dimensions. Around all of this runs a frame of hieroglyphic text, written in the Archizing style typical of the 26th dynasty. Mariette excavated it in June 1858 from the ruins of a small temple of Isis directly east of the Great Pyramid, beside the 3 smaller Queen's Pyramids. It went to the Cairo Museum, where it has remained for over 160 years. The opening lines are formulaic. Live the Horus Medjed, king of Upper and Lower Egypt, Khufu, given life. Then comes the line that has caused 150 years of argument. He found the house of Isis, mistress of the pyramid, beside the house of the Sphinx, not built, found. The tablet asserts that Khufu walked up to the Giza plateau and discovered structures already standing. Orthodox Egyptology rejects this. The most cited authority is Salim Hassan, who in 1949 dismissed the text as a Saite-period priestly fabrication composed around 670 BCE to give the Isis temple a falsely ancient pedigree. He pointed to anachronisms. The title Mistress of the Pyramids doesn't appear before the New Kingdom. The name Harmachis for the Sphinx isn't attested before the 18th dynasty. Hassan's verdict became consensus, but the consensus has cracked. In 2017, researchers Manu Saifzadeh and Robert Schock published a reanalysis in the Archaeological Discovery Journal arguing that the tablet preserves an authentic Old Kingdom source layered under Sate editorial additions. Their case rests on internal, economic, and topographic details that match 4th dynasty conditions, not Sate ones. The argument hasn't won the field, but it's no longer fringe. Set aside which side is right. Both interpretations agree on one thing. The tablet describes specific architectural features of the Great Pyramid complex: sealed thresholds, ritual passages, doors. And here is the detail that orthodox dismissal has never adequately explained. When Mariette pulled this tablet out of the sand in 1858, the lower shafts of the Queen's Chamber had not yet been discovered. They wouldn't be found until 1872, 14 years later, when an engineer named Wayneman Dixon noticed a crack in a wall and pushed a metal rod through it. So how did a Sale priest, working with materials supposedly invented, describe the existence of internal architecture that no living human in 1858 had ever seen? Step back from the tablet and look at the structure it describes. The Great Pyramid of Khufu stood originally 146.5 meters tall, encased in polished Tura limestone, built around 2560 BCE in roughly 20 years. It is the last surviving wonder of the ancient world. Inside, 3 main chambers are linked by passages of extraordinary precision. The subterranean chamber, cut into the bedrock below. The Queen's Chamber, positioned along the pyramid's east-west axis. The King's Chamber, set higher, accessed through the Grand Gallery. These are the spaces the tour guides describe. But the pyramid also contains 4 narrow shafts cut directly into the masonry, each only about 20 centimeters square. 2 rise from the king's chamber and break through the outer surface of the pyramid. The other 2 rise from the queen's chamber, and they do something stranger. They go nowhere. They were sealed, hidden behind smooth limestone facing that made the queen's chamber walls look continuous. No visible openings, no indication from inside the chamber that the shafts existed at all. For 3,700 years after the pyramid was built, no one knew they were there. Then in 1872, an engineer named Wayneman Dixon was inspecting the chamber and noticed a hairline crack in the south wall. He pushed a thin metal rod through it. The rod kept going. Dixon and his colleague Bill Grundy chiseled through the limestone facing and found the southern shaft running up into the body of the pyramid at a steep angle. They found its counterpart on the north wall. Both ran for over 65 meters into the masonry and ended at something solid. The technology to send a camera up a 20-centimeter shaft did not exist. For the next 120 years, no one could see what was at the end. The shafts entered Egyptological literature as air shafts. The label was a guess. They did not reach outside air. They did not ventilate anything. They did not match any known funerary function. By the 1980s, the consensus was that the Queen's chamber shafts had been started during construction and then abandoned. The references on the Inventory Stela to sealed doorways and ritual configurations were dismissed as priestly invention. The shafts were a mistake. The tablet was a forgery. Both could be safely ignored. Then, in 1993, a German engineer named Rudolf Gantenbrink, working under the German Archaeological Institute in Cairo, built a small tracked robot equipped with lights, a camera, and a laser pointer. He named it Uput-2, after the ancient Egyptian god whose name meant the opener of the ways. He sent it up the southern shaft. The robot climbed slowly. The southern shaft is not a clean tube. It bends and shifts. There are lateral displacements where the masonry course steps sideways. There are floor steps. Uput-2 was small enough to navigate them, equipped with a treaded drive system that could grip the polished limestone. Gantenbrink steered it remotely from the Queen's chamber below, watching the camera feed on a monitor as the robot pushed deeper into the body of the pyramid. 65 meters in, the robot stopped. The shaft did not end in rough stone. It ended in a finished limestone slab. Worked, polished. Cut from the same fine Tura limestone used for the pyramid's outer casing. The most expensive, most carefully prepared stone in the entire structure. Whoever placed this slab cared about it. And embedded in its face, 2 corroded copper fittings. Loops set into the stone with deliberate symmetry, one above the other, heavily oxidized but unmistakably manufactured. Pinned in place. Press coverage called them handles. They were, the early reporters wrote, the keys to a door. Sit with that detail. Copper is not a known structural material in the Great Pyramid. There is no other metal anywhere inside the entire monument. No nails, no fittings, no copper anywhere except embedded in this one sealed slab, 6 meters from the outer surface, at the end of a shaft no one was supposed to enter. The discovery hit the international press in 1993. It was named Gantenbrink's Door. The world watched. Gantenbrink attempted the northern shaft a few days later and turned back when his guide rods went missing. He didn't want to lose the robot in the bends. 9 years passed. Then in 2002, a National Geographic team returned with a different robot and live television cameras. They drilled a small hole through the copper-pinned slab, threaded a fiber optic camera through, and on live broadcast to an audience of millions, the camera revealed what was on the other side. Another door, a second sealed limestone slab, 21 centimeters behind the first, cracked across its surface, covering something. The team had no permits to drill further. The transmission ended. The world had been promised a chamber, it had been given a second door. The original investigators had assumed the first slab was the answer. It wasn't. It was a layer. The door behind the door reframed everything. Whatever the builders had hidden up there, they had hidden it carefully, deliberately, with redundancy. The inventory. Stela's references to sealed thresholds, dismissed for over a century as priestly invention, now read very differently. The tablet had described doors. The robots were finding them. By 2010, the technology had advanced enough to do what 2002 could not. Zahi Hawass, then Minister of State for Antiquities Affairs, commissioned a new expedition. He named it the Jedi Project, after the magician who, according to legend, Khufu had consulted when planning the internal layout of the pyramid. The robot was built at the University of Leeds in collaboration with Scutech UK and Dassault Systems in France. Its key innovation was a fiber optic micro-snake camera capable of bending around corners. Previous robots could only look straight ahead. This one could turn. In May of 2011, the Jedi robot entered the southern shaft, climbed the 65 meters to Gantenbrink's door, threaded its camera through the hole drilled in 2002, and turned the lens sideways. For the first time in 4,500 years, light fell on the chamber between the two sealed slabs. The floor was marked. 3 red ochre figures painted directly onto the limestone in pigment that had not faded. A mason's line ran parallel to the shaft, drawn from just behind the first door to the second. The figures were hieroglyphic. The Egyptian mathematics researcher Luca Miatello decoded them. The marks read 100, 20, and 1. Added together, 121. The length of the shaft, measured in royal cubits. The builders had left a number on the floor of a chamber that was never supposed to be entered. A measurement, a record of their own work, sealed inside the pyramid and addressed to no one. Then the camera turned and examined the back of the first door. It was polished, finished. The kind of surface treatment the Egyptians applied only to stone that was meant to be seen. A rough barrier intended to keep debris out of a shaft would never have been finished on its hidden face. This stone had been prepared for an approach from the other side. The Jedi team also re-examined the 2 copper fittings. From the front, they looked like handles. From the back, the camera showed something different. The loops curved back on themselves, far too small to grip, too narrow for any mechanical function. The handle. Theory collapsed. Sean Whitehead of Scouttech UK, the project's mission manager, said the pins must have served a more specific purpose. Ornamental, ritual, mechanical, no one could say. But the original explanation was finished. Reframe the picture. This was not a wall. It was a threshold designed to be opened from the other side, marked with measurements its builders never expected anyone to read. The key, whatever it was not on the chamber's side. The key was somewhere behind the door. The southern shaft was not the only sealed passage. The northern shaft of the Queen's Chamber defeated Gantenbrink in 1993. Its bends were sharper, its lateral displacements more severe, and after his guide rods went missing, he refused to risk losing the robot inside the masonry. The shaft remained unexplored for 9 years. In 2002, a robot built by iRobot of Boston, the same company that would later make the Roomba, was sent up through the northern shaft. It navigated the turns. It climbed past the Grand Gallery, threading through 3 separate course changes the builders had cut into the masonry to avoid intersecting the larger chamber. At 64 meters in, it stopped. The shaft did not end in raw stone. It ended in a limestone slab, identical in construction to the slab in the southern shaft, with an identical pair of copper fittings embedded in its face. Both doors, north and south, blocked their shafts at almost exactly 210 feet from the chamber floor. Sit with that. The 2 shafts run on opposite sides of the pyramid. They take different paths through the masonry. They pass at different angles, and they terminate at the same distance from the chamber, blocked by identical sealed doors, each fitted with an identical pair of copper keys. That is not abandonment. That is not construction error. that is mathematics. The Jedi team in 2011 confirmed the symmetry, though they did not breach the northern door. Hawass referred to the discovery in a 2024 interview as the three doors, the first in the southern shaft, the second 21 centimeters behind it, the third in the northern shaft, and said it was the find that left him with the most unanswered questions of his career. He announced a new mission to investigate them. The conventional explanation has always been ritual. Egyptian funerary texts describe the soul of the deceased pharaoh passing through a series of doors on its journey to the afterlife, sometimes guarded by serpents. Hawass himself proposed that the copper fittings represented stylized snakes. The interpretation is plausible. It is also incomplete. Symbolic doorways do not require copper fittings, the only metal in the entire monument. They do not require polished reverse surfaces. They do not require the precise mathematical positioning of two independent shafts to terminate at the same measured distance. The Egyptians had cheaper, simpler ways to represent a ritual passage. Whatever the queen's chamber doors were, they were engineered for a function. The question is no longer whether they meant something. The question is which function was important enough to engineer this carefully. Bring the investigation into the present. In October 2015, an international team led by Cairo University and the French Heritage Innovation Preservation Institute launched a project called Scan Pyramids. The goal was non-invasive imaging of the Old Kingdom pyramids using technology no previous expedition had access to. The lead method was muon radiography. Muons are subatomic particles produced when cosmic rays strike the upper atmosphere. They rain down on the Earth's surface in vast numbers, and they pass through solid stone, but they are absorbed at different rates depending on the density of what they cross. By placing muon detectors inside and around the pyramid for months at a time, the team could map its internal density and reveal hidden voids without drilling a single hole. The results were published in Nature in November 2017. The team had detected a cavity inside the Great Pyramid, not a small one, a space at least 30 meters long, with a cross-section comparable to the Grand Gallery situated directly above it. They named it Scan Pyramids Big Void. The discovery was confirmed independently by 3 different muon detection technologies and 3 separate analyses. In March 2023, the same team published a follow-up in Nature Communications. A second void behind the chevron stones on the pyramid's northern face. 9 meters long, 2 meters wide, 2 meters tall, with a vaulted ceiling. A corridor. They threaded an endoscope through a small joint between the stones and recorded the first images of an architectural feature unseen since the pyramid was sealed. Now return to the tablet. The inventory. Stela described the pyramid as containing internal structures, sealed thresholds, and ritual configurations specific enough that orthodox Egyptology dismissed them as priestly fabrication. The queen's chamber shafts, hidden behind smooth walls until 1872, ran to limestone doors fitted with the only metal anywhere in the entire monument. Behind those doors, more doors. Above them, a void the size of the Grand Gallery. Behind the north face, a sealed corridor revealed only in 2023. Each discovery has narrowed the gap between what the tablet described and what the pyramid contains. The dating question becomes secondary. Whether the tablet was authored in Khufu's reign or copied by Saite priests 2,000 years later, the text preserved knowledge of internal architecture that no one living when it was discovered had ever seen. Like the Sumerian tablet in our previous investigation, the inventory. Stela may not have been mythology. It may have been a record dressed in ritual language because that was the vocabulary the priests had. The third door has never been drilled. The big void has never been entered. The north face corridor's far end remains unmapped. Step back from the evidence and look at the pattern. For 150 years, the Inventory Stela was dismissed as a forgery. For 120 years, the Queen's chamber shafts were dismissed as construction errors. For 30 years, the copper-pinned doors have been called air shaft blockers or decorative features. Each dismissal has softened as the evidence accumulated. The tablet described a structure with hidden architecture and sealed thresholds. The robots have found exactly that. None of this proves the tablet was older than its Saite dating suggests, or that lost civilizations carved its source text. What it suggests is something quieter, and in some ways more interesting. Ancient people knew things about the pyramid that we have only confirmed in the last 30 years. The third door remains sealed. The big void remains unentered. The tablet remains in its Cairo display case. Something is still waiting.